Now, strong leaders are not simply busy people. They are thoughtful people who know how to process information, ask better questions, and make sound decisions under pressure. In today's workplace, technical skills alone are no longer enough. Organizations increasingly need leaders and employees who can think critically, solve problems calmly, communicate clearly, and engage people effectively. At its core, leadership reflects the integration of how we think, act, and live across business, work, and life. And in the workplace, performance leadership is about aligning people, purpose, and processes to consistently achieve meaningful results in the workplace. It emanates from within and manifests itself outward. Now, did you know that on Mondays, my talks focus on Listening Heart series, which explores spiritual leadership from a Christian values perspective? And on Fridays, we turn to adaptive leadership in the digital world. Now, you may be wondering what gives me the right to talk about these things. Well, it really follows my life experiences from 6 years in a seminary under the guidance of Benedictine monks to 18 years in government at the executive level, to owning my own consulting and training firm for over 45 years, and finally to transitioning my work into the digital world in the past several years. Hello, folks. I'm Richard Fontanie, and I will be your host today. And if you are new to this podcast, welcome. And if you are returning, a heartfelt welcome back. Now, before we begin, I invite you to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And thank you for doing so. Today, we are discussing a topic that directly impacts productivity, teamwork, communication, and leadership effectiveness. Strengthening logic, reasoning, and engagement in the workplace. Now, this topic is essential to performance leadership because organizations operate in rapidly changing environments and with competing priorities and increasing complexity. Leaders who cannot think clearly often react emotionally, communicate poorly, and create confusion within teams. And by contrast, leaders who strengthen analytical thinking, build trust and clarity and consistent performance. Now, don't get me wrong, emotionality is important, as I discussed in my talk on emotional intelligence. And I have provided the link of that presentation below. Now, let's get on with critical thinking. Critical thinking is not about becoming argumentative. It's about becoming thoughtful. It means learning how to pause before reacting and gather accurate information, assess possible outcomes, and make balanced decisions that support both people and organizational goals. As in my practice, let's explore practical leadership strategies. And today, the 5 strategies really focus on strengthening our logic and our involvement with others. Strategy 1, slow down reacting thinking. One of the greatest leadership challenges today is the pressure to react quickly. Emails arrive instantly, meetings overlap, deadlines pile up, and workplace pressures often pushes leaders into emotional responses rather than thoughtful decisions. Performance leaders learn the discipline of slowing down before responding. A thoughtful pause improves communication, reduces unnecessary conflict, and it creates space for clearer judgment. I remember receiving negative feedback during a stressful product launch. My immediate instinct was to scrap the launch. And instead, I paused, reviewed the situation carefully, and discovered that the issue stemmed from unclear messaging and communication. And really, my marketplace was not ready for the launch. So I slowed down and then relaunched the program. And after I revamped the messaging and prepared my marketplace for the product, it significantly increased the product's uptake. Now, logic improves when untoward emotion no longer dominates communication in our marketplaces. We need to pause, slow down, and to analyze the situation before taking action. Strategy number 2, ask better workplace questions. The quality of leadership often depends on the quality of the questions being asked. Weak leaders make assumptions, whereas strong leaders seek understanding. Asking thoughtful questions improves engagement because employees feel heard, respected, and included in the process. Some powerful workplace questions include, what information might we be missing? What obstacles are preventing success? What assumptions are influencing this decision? What solutions have not yet been considered? What can we learn from this situation? Now, these questions strengthen collaboration while encouraging a deeper reasoning. Now, here's a story about an executive manager who noticed that team meetings were becoming increasingly unproductive. Team members rarely contributed ideas, and engagement remained low. Now, instead of continuing to dominate the discussions, he began asking open-ended questions and inviting quieter employees into the conversation. And within weeks, participation improved significantly. Team members felt valued. Communication grew healthier. And creative solutions began to emerge more consistently. Now, people engage more fully when leaders create environments that encourage thoughtful dialogue. Strategy number 3, build a culture of strong observation. Strong reasoning depends on strong observation. Many workplace problems continue because leaders fail to notice patterns, behaviors, and warning signs early enough. Performance leaders pay attention. They observe communication styles, workflow patterns, customer feedback, employee morale, and operational bottlenecks. Observation allows leaders to identify issues before they become major disruptions. For example, a manufacturing supervisor noticed that production errors consistently increased near the end of long shifts. And rather than immediately disciplining employees, he investigated workload patterns and fatigue levels. After adjusting schedules and introducing short recovery breaks, error rates declined noticeably. Observation created insight, and insight created improvement. And this principle also applies to leadership communication. Leaders who observe how their tone, body language, and decision-making affect workplace culture. Sometimes the problem within a team is not the employees, and sometimes the problem is really leadership inconsistency. Thoughtful observation creates healthier organizations. Strategy 4, encourage reflective learning. Now, one of the most overlooked leadership practices is reflection. Busy workplaces often move from one task directly into another without taking time to evaluate lessons learned. Yet, growth rarely occurs without reflection. Performance leaders encourage reflective learning because it strengthens reasoning and long-term improvement. After major projects, meetings, or workplace challenges, effective leaders ask reflective questions, such as, what worked well? What did we learn? What should we improve next time? What communication gaps appeared? What strengths did the team demonstrate? Reflection transforms experience into practical wisdom. I remember facilitating a leadership session with an agriculture organization where teams rarely reviewed outcomes after stressful projects. Employees felt exhausted and disconnected because work became a cycle of constant pressure without meaningful learning. Once leadership introduced short, weekly, reflective debrief sessions, employees' engagement really improved. Now, teams began identifying practical improvements, celebrating small breakthroughs, and strengthening communication across all departments. Reflection really creates awareness, and awareness strengthens performance. Strategy 5, strengthen engagement through clear communication. Critical thinking and engagement are closely connected. Employees disengage when communication becomes confusing, inconsistent, and emotionally reactive. Performance leaders strengthen engagement by communicating with clarity, honesty, and purpose. Clear communication helps employees understand expectations, priorities, and organizational direction. It also reduces unnecessary anxiety. One government leadership team I worked with transformed workplace morale simply by improving communication. Previously, employees often received inconsistent and incomplete information about organizational changes. Rumors spread quickly, and uncertainty bred stress throughout the workplace. The leadership team introduced regular newsletters covering meeting updates, transparent communication practices, and opportunities for employees to ask questions. And over time, trust increased noticeably as employees felt informed and respected. People perform better when communication creates clarity instead of confusion. That is one of the foundations of performance leadership. Now, as we bring today's conversation to a close, remember this. Critical thinking is not reserved for executives, analysts, or specialists. It is a practical leadership skill available to every person willing to think more intentionally. Now, whether you supervise a team, manage a business, lead meetings, support customers, coach employees, or influence others informally, your ability to think critically expands the culture around you. Strong workplaces are built by leaders who pause before reacting, ask thoughtful questions, observe closely, reflect regularly, and communicate clearly. Now, these practices strengthen not only logic and reasoning, but also trust, engagement, and long-term organizational health. So this week, choose one area to strengthen your critical thinking. And maybe it means listening more carefully before responding. And maybe it means asking deeper questions during meetings. And maybe it means slowing down emotionally rather than making reactive decisions. Small leadership adjustments often create significant long-term results. Now, bring this podcast into your next conversation, meeting, or coaching moment. And remember, leadership is practiced one interaction at a time, and sustainable excellence is built in rhythms and not marathons. Now, if this conversation resonated with you, please subscribe, like, and refer to a friend. And thank you for doing so. I'm Richard Fontanie, signing off. Join me next week when our conversation turns to how to build confidence for speaking in groups and why this skill matters deeply to performance leadership. I hope you can join me. In the meantime, bye now.